Hey everyone, welcome back to Boho Joel. I'm doing some resin things this week and I wanted to share some resin things while I have a chance to in between working. It's been a little bit slow, so make use of the time as we can, right? So I ordered this kit right here from Amazon. I saw it because I'm doing a little research for some classes to teach, some workshops, and I've seen a lot of these resin coaster kind of things going on, so I thought, well, I found this and there's a ton of stuff in it, so it might be a good place to start with making resin coasters. So I haven't opened this yet. I did peek inside a little bit, but I'm gonna flip you guys around. We're gonna unbox it together, check it out, see what's going on with it, and see if it's something that that I'm gonna enjoy doing. So here it is. I'm gonna flip you guys around and we're gonna get started. All right, so this is by the company Let's Resin. I've never used this resin, so I'm curious to see how it does. And it just says resin kit with various molds, beginner set. Let's Resin, be creative, have fun. So I like that. Okay, so we're gonna check this out. So let's see. So right here we have our coaster molds and noisy, crinkly plastic. All right, so we're gonna get that out of the way. Oh my gosh, that's probably so loud. All right, so let's take a look at these. So these are the little molds. I'm assuming, well, maybe this is the side that you would use. I'm gonna check it out. So I imagine you could use this side and create like a little bump. I don't know why this texture would be here, unless you could just create like a little donut or something. We'll see how that goes. And then this was what I was really looking for, were sort of those geode shapes. Because you see a lot of those going on, so we're going to kind of play around with that a little bit. So those little geode shapes, and then here, same kind of thing. So I guess you just create little designs in there. So I'm curious to see how that'll work, because it doesn't flow over. So it's just going to have little sections if you use that side. All right, so interesting. And the same thing here. I'm assuming you would use this side, though. I'm assuming this is for this. And then this is probably just how it's manufactured or whatever, maybe to be able to pop it out. And so you'd have like your little divot here, but we'll see. We'll see what the instructions say. I mean, that would make sense to me. So then it has little measuring cups and stir sticks, little plastic cups. Oh, let's get that open. So a few wooden stir sticks and gloves. Yep, so we've got some gloves here as well. So that's kind of nice. I tend to not use gloves when I'm working ever because I don't mind getting a little messy. But so I may just hold on to those for something else. And then if I do use gloves, just a side note, I mean, it's nice that they have these in here as part of the kit. I actually use reusable gloves that I purchased at the salon supply store because I'm a hairdresser, so I like to use the reusable gloves even for doing hair. And then we've got these nice measuring cups. So these are pretty sturdy. These are not your usual kind of flimsy measuring cups. So that's kind of nice. I don't know if they'd be reusable because it's plastic, so we'll see if I can clean the resin out of there. We'll use one of them and see how that goes. And then some smaller measuring cups. So the side has milliliters. Well, they both have milliliters. So usually what people do is measure the smaller amount. So you would do 30 milliliters of your part A and put it in the bigger cup, 30 milliliters of your part B, put it in the bigger cup so you have more room to kind of work with. So there's that. Set those aside. And then here is the resin. Epoxy part A and part B. Boom. I love a little kit though, you guys. I'm not gonna lie, it's kind of fun. It's like opening a Christmas present. So 8 ounces. They're both very clear, so I'm not used to that. With the resin I usually use, like one side is more clear and then the other side has kind of a tint to it. So we'll see how this works out. So hopefully it'll turn out to be really clear results. Maybe I'll find a new resin that I love. And here it looks like we just have some kind of gold leaf action going on. So that's kind of nice for accents. Oh. So yeah, so some fun little additives to add in there. Gold, and then some copper, one of my favorites, and silver. I use a lot of silver. I make a lot of silver Use a lot of silver findings in my jewelry. So that's kind of nice, something to really play with. And we have these little eyedroppers. They're not called eyedroppers. They're like little syringe kind of things. So I'll show you guys how to use those too. I was actually intending on doing a video showing how to use these, a separate video. And then these, I believe, are mica powders. I don't know what that says. Oh, it's for nails. It's something for nails. So it looks like some mica, like a little pouch of mica powders. Not a pouch, but a little box of mica powders to play with. So that'll be kind of fun. So we'll enjoy that. And I do remember seeing mica powders when well, I don't know, should I take this out now? When I saw the listing. So I think they come in little containers. Yeah, so they come in little bitty containers, and they did have a little brief video on the listing. And they really just chunked a whole one of these mica powders in there. And I thought, oh, that's a lot of mica powder. But now that I see it, it's probably actually not too much. But this stuff does go a long way. So I don't think you need a whole container for like one measuring cup worth. So we'll play around with that. That'll be fun. And then here is the user manual for Resin Beginner. So it talks about mixing the resin, the ratios, disposable gloves, the droppers. All right, so I'm not going to read through all of that. It does talk about the dyes, the powders. Well, this doesn't come with dyes, but it has some instructions on dyes. And then the powders. Okay, so this here in the instructions, it does say to use just a little bit of the pigment in different ways. So it has instructions for all kinds of things, even stuff that's not included, which is kind of nice. Some hits and misses with the resin, it looks like. Why doesn't it cure? Some facts and questions. Let's see. I feel like there's more. Is there more? Oh, it folds out. I got this. I got this. It's like a map, you guys. Good Lord. Okay, and then that's okay. So that's really it. And then it obviously shows other things that they sell. So this is kind of fun. I'm excited to try it. I'm going to look through this. I'm going to kind of organize all this chaos, and then we're going to kind of play and see what we can come up with. Okay guys, so a couple things I wanted to point out that I noticed while I was glancing through this. I'm just going to go through this with you guys. So it says there's no fixed ratio for mixing resin. You'll need to read carefully about the direction of each brand or type before starting. So I'm assuming that's just kind of a warning of like, okay, you've used other resin, this might not be the same. For example, we have resin that is 3-to-1 mixing ratio if you're measuring by weight, and 1-to-1 mixing measured by volume or weight. So I don't know if that's just, if they're talking, I guess they're talking about like other resins that they maybe produce, because otherwise it'd be kind of a contradiction. So I just wanted to point that out because I feel like that's a little confusing if you're looking at that, especially if you've never used resin before. But this one right here, this particular one that came with this, it says on the bottle ratio 1-to-1. So that's what we're going to be doing, which just means equal parts. Okay. Now one thing I noticed, this has a working time of 20 minutes. So it says you have a working time of 20 minutes to work with the resin once they're mixed. Demold time 8 hours, which is actually pretty quick. It means you can demold the piece in 8 hours, but it will take longer hours for fully cure. So, yeah. So I guess it hardens and it sets in 8 hours, but I would still say let it sit for 24 hours if you want it completely solid. So we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it kind of works, but it has a 20-minute working time, which kind of makes sense. You know, I use the Amazing Clear Cast. It says usually about 30 minutes, but definitely at that 30-minute mark, you can tell where it's real kind of syrupy and almost like a thick honey when you're trying to pour it. So that's not too different or too unusual. And then it just says, you know, to use the large measuring cup for measuring, not to measure from the 2 smaller cups like I mentioned some people do earlier, just I guess to make sure it's as precise as possible. So I just wanted to share that, and I'm gonna actually play with a little bit of the resin before. Okay, so I thought I would flip you guys around while I chat for just a minute. So I'm actually going to play around with a couple of these before I demo with you guys. We'll play with some, but I'm going to try at least one of these out and see what the deal is. I'm also going to go back and check out where I purchased, my purchase history, so that I can watch the little video that came with this, because I'm thinking maybe that'll help me figure out what the deal is with these, because I'm like, these are going to be, it's going to be like a little puzzle piece if we do it this way. So I'm not really sure. I'm assuming that this is the top, but then you've got like this whole ridge. So, which I guess makes sense, right? To kind of have the cup. I got Starbucks earlier, so I guess that makes sense. So anyway, I'm going to play around with it, see what I can come up with some designs and all of that kind of stuff to give you guys tips. And just make sure I know how I'm mixing this so we don't have a situation on our hands, okay? So I am gonna go ahead and do that and just kind of make one little coaster tonight and play around with some of these powders and things as well. And so for me, I guess I'll see you guys tomorrow, and for you guys, it'll be in just a few seconds, thanks to the magic of editing. So, all right, let's play. All right, guys, we are back. And so I am mixing up a cup of resin right now. And I thought that while I'm mixing it, I will show you the mixing process. So I just did the 30 milliliters. Hope that doesn't fall out. And so just 15 milliliters of one part, 15 of the next, and it really does fill it right up to the top. But what I wanted to show you while I was thinking about it, you can kind of see, I hope you can see sort of the striation in that. So when you're mixing your resin, anytime you're mixing resin, oh golly, messy. You don't want to mix it, you're not whipping whipped cream, right? You want to mix it fairly slowly and gently until that striation is gone. So I'm going to be mixing this up until that happens. Usually it takes about a minute or two. It depends on the resin, but we'll keep mixing it until it looks clear again. Okay, so all mixed up, so you can see how that's kind of clear, very minimal bubbles in there, and that's why you don't want to mix it too fast. But I did notice on this one, props to this resin, it does not bubble up as much as the other ones that I have used in the past, but maybe I just got lucky on that. So here is the one that I poured, kind of my experimental piece, and as I talk about the bubbling, this did happen, but that was my fault. That was once it started to set, I was experimenting and I added more, and so it just didn't mix well. But here's the little Geode one. So I'm going to show you what I did on this. Not really a fan of how this turned out. I'll explain that. And a couple of things I noticed about this. It mentioned in the directions that it starts to set in 20 minutes. It definitely does not. It does not. And you'll see as we're pouring it, as I pour a demo for you guys, it took forever. And right at the 8-hour mark, when it said in the instructions you could demold it, it was still kind of wobbly. Like as I turned it, kind of checked it out, you could still see resin moving in the top. So definitely keep it somewhere completely undisturbed for 24 hours, I would say. So I played around with some of the techniques. For sure, do not use an entire cup of this mica powder for one of these coasters. I went back and watched the video. They did have this kind of turned up this way, so I was right about that, but they didn't really show a lot of other instruction. They did dump a whole one of these into a cup of resin. That's too much. What will happen is it probably won't set at all. I've had that experience with other products. So now for this, it showed in the book, a little pamphlet right here where you could paint it onto it directly, and so I tried that. And on a plus side, yes, I just painted it directly, a little paintbrush into the mica powder and painted it right on there. It stayed on the silicone, it didn't wobble around, and as I poured the resin, it stayed exactly where I painted it. So exactly where I put those brush strokes on the tray is where the gold ended up staying. So that's really cool to know. So if you wanted to create a design with that, then you definitely could. I honestly expected it to mix with the resin and kind of float a little bit. That's why I did this. So it won't do that. So don't do that. So that's why I say I'm not a huge fan of how that looks. But it was all experimentation. And then also you can kind of see where I mixed colors. I'm not sure what they were using in the video, but in the video they did one of these and just poured the resin, and the resin sort of stayed where they poured it, and in the center they did a second color. That did not work. So it definitely blurred together. Not totally hating it, but if you're trying to create a more exact design, I'm not sure that this would be the resin to use. So let's get into it. Should we do another geode? I kind of want to do one of these. Let's do this one just because I'm curious about it. Let me make sure I have stuff cleaned out. So this is just an old washcloth, if you guys are curious. I like to upcycle and recycle as much as possible. This actually wasn't in bad shape or anything. I just grabbed it one day for crafts and now it's designated to crafts. But if you have, you know, old washcloths or dishcloths or something that you don't feel like you can use anymore for, you know, everyday use, you can use them for cleaning up art projects. So I'm going to pour about half of this, I guess, into the other cup. And I did mix it, you know, both in one cup. I know I had mentioned sometimes people will use these as measuring cups. I've seen that. I usually always just pour mine into the one cup. So with the dry end of my popsicle stick, let's see, what color shall we play with today? I'm kind of feeling this magenta-y, purpley, bright color. I'm actually just going to take like a little bit of that and pour it into my resin. Okay. And I'm going to set that aside. I'm going to keep that end of the stick dry for now and mix that together. And they do suggest mixing the resin first before you put any of the additives in. And I'm going to do a couple more videos with some of the other things I've been playing with the resin, with some of the resin specific inks and things. One thing I would say, anytime you mix anything into your resin, might do just a little bit more, just a tiny little bit more. Anytime you mix anything into your resin, go with caution because less is more. If you put too much, you're not going to get, I haven't had an experience where you can get like really solid colors with the resin. So unless maybe you paint it and you do this, that came out pretty solid, but it will tend to interfere, I guess, with the chemical reactions going on in your resin. And it can definitely cause your resin to get wonky and not set properly. And then you have taffy on your hands. So we're going to do that. And you're going to see it just stays so liquidy, you guys. So I'm just going to pour that in here. It's not going to go very far. I'm going to have to mix some more for sure. I'll probably have to get my big mixing cups from downstairs for sure. Okay, and then let's do a completely opposite color. We'll do a little bit of the blue for the other small cup. So you can see these little small cups are not going to go very far, that 30 milliliters. So a little bit of the blue. I just want to show you guys how that reacts with each other when we pour them in. Because my experience has been in the past, like some of my resins, I let them sit for a little while, especially when I'm making the jewelry and I'm, you know, doing like smaller details. I might wait for like the smaller pendants. I wait for the resin to start setting up. So after I pour my larger bits, I do those smaller bits because after about 30 minutes, it does start to set. This one, it just stays very liquidy for a pretty good length of time. Let's just get that mixed up pretty well. And then we'll pour it over here, which I'm not saying it's a bad thing at all. Don't get me wrong. I'm not condemning this resin. I think there are, you know, I have a few dots there. I think it'll be okay. We'll make this a very, very abstract Jackson Pollock-y sort of experiment, except without flinging things. So I think, you know, the different types of resin is just something to note. So that is actually staying pretty well right there for the moment. So yay for that. And I got a big cup and started mixing this up. So I think it's just something valid to note, depending on the project that you're working on. If you want to have a resin, or if you need a resin that's going to set very quickly, or if you need something that is going to take longer to cure, so you can work with it and play with it a little more. So this time I did get a nice little well in it. So yay for that. So let's see what we'll do next here. So I just went full on and just added a bunch of purple to this really big cup. Purple's my favorite color. If you guys don't know that yet, if I haven't shared that, it's totally my favorite. So I'm going to try to keep this more in just the center of that. Oh, it came out so fast. Very liquidy, not terrible. And so what I would say is if you're trying to do layers, it's definitely something to plan. Like always anyway, if you're layering, like say now if I want to let this set and then create a different color layer on top, because now if I pour anything on top of this, it's going to just completely mix up. It's going to mix all those colors together. So I'm going to leave that alone for now. I think I am going to put, actually, let's put a little of the silver in there. So this stuff, very messy. I'm just going to kind of let it fall where it wants. Silver leaf, gold leaf, all these kind of things. It's so, the texture of this is so thin. It's like you don't even feel it on your fingertips, which is what I feel like makes it hard to work with. Just have to be a little intuitive. So I'm going to put a little bit of that in there. And then maybe once this sets, I will add, oh, there's a big chunk. I will add another layer to it. But really that might be enough too, because the coasters, some of these are thicker than others. So let's just play with that a little. What a mess. What a mess. You guys should see me when I cook. It's just as bad when I cook. There's just stuff everywhere. Like I spend half my time cooking, cleaning up. I'm really not even paying attention. I'm so busy talking. I'm not even paying attention to what I'm doing, but that's okay. We're just playing here, right? Nothing serious going on here. So I'm going to let this set. But you can see, and I've paused the camera a few times. So we're going on 15 minutes here, and this is still, it's all very, very runny still, right? So it's pretty liquidy still. So it's okay. I mean, it's like I said, it's not a terrible thing. But I'm going to push this one to the side. And now this one is really thick. So I'm looking at this and I'm wondering, do I need it quite that thick? But let's see how it goes. Some silver. So get all the silver off of my fingers. This is, so the leaves, I don't know what they're called. I guess they're the leaves, the gold, the silver, the copper leaves. They're just as bad as glitter. So if you're working with any of those materials or glitter, make sure you're clearing your space if you're worried about glitter getting into anything. So I'm just going to put that in there, fill that up. And it's very pretty. The mica powders are very pretty in there, I feel. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to show you guys, I'm going to mix up another color and pour it on top of that to show you what I'm talking about when I say, you know, if I put anything on top of that, it's just going to completely, you know, the cute flow of colors I have now is going to disappear. So another option when you're adding the gold leaf or whatever leaf you want to add is to mix it in with your resin, directly into the resin. So you'll see the mica powder in there for sure, because I accidentally sort of poured a whole lot more in there than I meant to. So hopefully it works out okay. We will see. But I do love the coppery colors. I love the golds and the bronzes and the mica, because you see that swirl. So I really do enjoy that. So anyway, so I did add the gold leaf in there. So now I'm going to show you guys what happens. I'm just totally enraptured with that, the way that looks. Apologies. So let's go ahead and add that to the top of that. So you'll see, hopefully you can see, let me push it a little more toward the center. Oh, well, see, this is so chunky right now. I just see the chunks of stuff coming out. But you see how ultimately you might get a little bit of a design, but as it sets, it continues to sort of expand. Let's just play with that for a minute. I actually really kind of like how that looks, the gold and the purple and the stuff. So I'm going to take that and just kind of swirl it a little bit. And we'll see how that does as far as creating a bit of a pattern. But anyway, that's just something to consider, because the resin has a life of its own. And so as it continues to set and as it continues to sort of do its thing, Like you can create a really pretty pattern. It might stay, it might also not, but I have a lot of mica powder in there, so it's possible that the mica powder accident was serendipitous. Happy little accident, right? There are no such things as accidents, as Bob Ross would say. So anyway, we'll see how that sets up, but it's just to keep in mind that if you're really wanting to create definitive layers and definitive colors, like I like how these colors are laying next to each other, so I'm going to leave that alone until it cures and sets a bit. We're going to leave this one alone. That one random gold leaf just popping up on its own is making me nuts. Okay, there we go. So we have that, and we're going to see what happens with those. Now to create these geode coasters, so that a lot of people are doing, I think it's just a matter of experimenting. People make it look so easy. And I think it is just kind of a matter of do a color on the outside and then try to get another color on the inside and so forth, just to create those circular patterns. We'll see if we can kind of get that to work and happen. See if I can finagle that to happening. Let's find out. So I mixed up the second color, and it's kind of a brownish, bronzish color, and I'm going to put that, pour that next to this and hope that it doesn't, yeah, maybe that'll push it back. Yay. Push it back a little bit. So the thing to remember with resin, because I really want it to go that way, that really poured out so much. So let's see if we can kind of get it to push in that direction, but still leave space for our little center piece there. Oh, goodness. Oh, before it closes up, let's see. Ah, is it going to melt everywhere? Oh, so see how it's kind of, okay, well, maybe it'll be okay. Maybe it'll be okay. We'll kind of work that through and work a little more on the edges. But so, because the resin is so fluid, add a little more here. Try to fill it up some. It's just going to be runny, just like water, right? So, and that's any resin, not just like this resin. Let me pour a little more over top of that. See if we can get an actual geode shape. People make it look so easy on Pinterest, right? And in the really sped up videos. You're like, what sorcery is this? But then they never quite tell you. So there we go. So I'm just going to layer that up on top of where I already had my darker a little bit. And it's just filling it up more to the edge. That looks kind of crazy when I look at it in the camera. I'm kind of at a weird angle because I'm trying not to hit the camera and the way the sun is glaring right now. Let me see. Just do some little organic swirly sort of things because nature has random shapes, right? That looks kind of ugly. All right. Well, we'll see how it turns out. Because really, I wanted all of that more to that edge, right? Well, let's just kind of play with it. But you see how I mean, where it's really difficult. It's starting to look kind of like a flower, which I'm not hating. It's kind of difficult to control it. So I think, like I said, if you're trying to create something like a geode where you're trying to get those very specific sort of rings, use a resin that's going to start setting up within a certain amount of time, that doesn't stay quite so liquidy for so long. Because even the idea of pouring the ring and letting it set or whatever, you see it just flows. So once that resin starts to get to maybe, you know, that 20-minute mark genuinely, or 30-minute mark where it starts to set up, and then you can start pouring that. I know I've mentioned using that technique sort of in the past with some of my jewelry making as well, where I'm layering things and adding glitters and all of that kind of stuff. So you guys, if you haven't seen those videos, be sure to check them out, please. This is driving me nuts. It feels very, like, ugly. Let me see if I can help it or if we're going to make it worse here. So where's that going? Oh, that's kind of pushing it out to the side. What do you guys think? It's all about experimenting. Right. Just add another little, there we go. We'll see what that does. I feel like I'm just a kid in chaos right now. Oh yeah, that's awful. Okay, let's just play with that a minute. And we'll see how it sets up. I'm just sitting here thinking, like, what am I going to do with all these coasters? Do I need all these coasters? So that's that, you guys. So that's, and it does, now one thing I will say, it hardens really well. Like, there's no flexibility left to it at all. I was a little concerned But, you know, sometimes with resin, it may feel tacky or sticky, but this one, it is really, really clear, and it's very plasticky feeling. So there's no tackiness or anything like that once it sets. So anyway, I hope you guys found the little demonstration helpful and all that jazz. Let me pull these back into view. And I will just kind of, I mean, you know, we'll see. I might do a little unmolding video. Like I said, these are going to take a long time to set. So I will do, I guess, like just a little quickie unmolding video once these set, if you guys are curious for that. And I'll post it on Instagram as well. So if you don't follow me on Instagram, go follow me on Instagram. And if you don't already follow my channel, please follow and subscribe. I appreciate you guys very much. And let me know what you want to see next. And if there are any kits out there where you're like, oh, that looks fun, that looks crafty, I don't know if it'll work, let me know. I will be glad to test it out and give you my honest opinion and review and see how this stuff works. All right, guys, till next time, see you later.